Hi, friends. I hope you'll keep joining me as I begin this adventure on weekly translations of the text that I personally find interesting. And for the first installation of Torah Targum, I wanted to explore what it is, perhaps one of the most famous phrases in Western civilization from the Bible, in the beginning. I want to start here also because the very first word of the Bible shows the complexity of the text as a whole. We see that Rashi and the commentators on the opening of the Bible observe the text's complexity and implore us to explore it. For background, the Hebrew Bible originally only had consonants, and the vowels were retained through the oral tradition and recitation, which in the Common Era was written down and preserved by the group known as the Masoretes. More than 1,000 years after the period of King David, and well after the revelation at Sinai. This is important, since the first vowel we have from the Masoretes in Beraishit at the beginning of the Hebrew Bible is a schwa, giving a literal translation of in a beginning, leaving a state of indefiniteness. We can turn to our two ancient Jewish sources for insight to better understand what is going on here. The first one is the Septuagint, and the other is Targum Onkelos, to see how these texts, which predate the period of the Masoretes, understood the beginning of the Hebrew Bible. In the Septuagint, we read en arche, which is also indefinite, missing the definite article, the, which we would expect here, because Greek is much more specific in the rules around grammar on this front. In Targum Onkelos, we read v'kadmin, and for those familiar with Aramaic, we would expect an aleph at the end of kadmin. At the time of Onkelos, which is before the Common Era and during the Hellenistic period, the aleph at the end retained the meaning of the, whereas later Aramaic, which many of us who engage with rabbinic texts in the Talmud may be more familiar with, and also the dialect known as Syriac, which is closely related to the Babylonian Aramaic in the 5th and 6th century, had fossilized the aleph at the end, leaving it up to interpretation as to whether the text was definite or indefinite. For these and other related reasons that we see in comparative ancient Near Eastern textual studies, there are many translators today who read the opening of the Bible as when God began to create, treating this as a dependent clause. The Torah, the first 5 books of the Hebrew Bible, which include writings, ketuvim, and prophets, nevi'im, contain more than 1.2 million consonants as a whole, when we look across all of Nach, and then 300,000 specifically just when we look at the Torah. And that's just the individual written consonants. There's other interpretations we see that say 600,000. That's separate conversation. When we think of these 300,000 individual written consonants, if there can be such a wide interpretation of the text with just the first letter, which accounts for less than 0.30034% of the Torah, then let's imagine the sea of possibility amid all of the Torah and its interpretation, and this should be for us a moment of reflection and a call to approach the text with curiosity, for there is always more to learn and more than any lifetime can accomplish. So with that, I want to begin my weekly installments of looking at something that I find interesting within the text of the Torah and looking at some of our ancient comparative texts to understand how we can approach the Jewish tradition as it relates to reading the Torah. Thank you.